Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Jekyll, as they call him in this movie. Yeah, we're doing a Dr. Jekyll movie today. This is one of the earliest ones. This is the one from the 30s with Fredric March, who won an Oscar for this performance, by the way, which is insane to think about in retrospect. Imagine this type of performance winning an Oscar today. The time I'm recording this, Demi Moore is nominated for Best Actress. I don't know if she's going to win. I guess that's the closest we'd see in comparison today. But whatever. There is a version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that is earlier than this film, from the silent era, and maybe we'll talk about it one day. You know, there's also more recent ones, and the characters appeared in other stuff. It's a famous literacy character, you know? The duality of man. What does it mean to let your primal instincts take over? Is it a metaphor for drug addiction and horniness and alcoholism? That's what I got. This really felt like, what if an alcoholic just did whatever he wanted? Which, yeah, it's what, I don't know, it's whatever. I hadn't seen this one before, and I'm fully aware of the character. Of course I am. It's like one of those characters I think is just so well known throughout like the history of literacy and cinema. And I've seen iterations of the character, but not this one in particular. And I'm a fan of like that type of story. It's very Wolfman. It's very Hulk. Early Hulk is very Jekyll and Hyde. It's the Nutty Professor. These are things I like. So this iteration, I don't know. I was like, is this going to be any good? It was. This was a really, really good movie. It was beautiful. And I say this all the time. I try to tell people who struggle to watch old movies. This is from 1931, and the cinematography in this, the camera choices we are seeing, they are better than so many things we are seeing in the modern day. There's just so many great facial expressions, so many great set design pieces, and just like shadows and silhouettes and just choices made that rival the stuff we see today. And this is like schlucky. This is just like, this guy's a weirdo. Look at him just like destroy himself in the world around him. It's not high art. Although I think time and distance from this piece in particular has made it kind of high art and it's become something special. This is really good. And having no idea what to expect, there are camera tricks that surprise me. The way we dissolve or the way we transition. Like, there are some really insane transitions in this movie where we're literally cutting a reel of film over top of another reel of film, but it's like slightly transitioning like a classic Star Wars wipe, but it's taking longer than that. And I don't know how you do that. Like, if you were to set me down in front of like a film camera and try to affect that, I couldn't do it. Like, that is a mastercraft and something beautiful to see. And this is Fredric March, who I cannot believe this performance. It was transcendent. I felt like I was watching something I've never seen before. The way he plays both halves of this man, the intensity in which he plays it, and the facial expressions. It is the perfect mix of like a Buster Keaton sad guy, scary yelling, and like the heartfelt, slick back hair and happiness of a Gene Kelly. If you mixed those two, you got Fredric March in this film. It is so incredible. And if you don't know the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, we have Dr. Harry Jekyll, as they call him in this movie. He goes to a university and he like teaches. He's like a doctor. People come to see him talk about stuff. Well, he has a theory, and his theory is inside every man there are two halves. There's the one we present and our darker innermost being that we can never let out. Well, he wants to separate the two men. And if I was like his student, I'd say, what are you talking about? But he does it. That's how he becomes Mr. Hyde. He does a bunch of science, and he drinks a little bit of a drink. He drinks some ambiguous science drink, and then he turns into Mr. Hyde. The transition's incredible. We'll get into the story in a bit here, but there's one thing in particular I do want to bring up. The transition is great, and I think the design for Mr. Hyde is very iconic. Very interesting. You can pick it out in a lineup, like, oh, that is the 30s Mr. Hyde. Now, a thought I did have watching this, as somebody who's been, just looking at film in a different way, I started to like maybe have like an idea in my head of like, is this a caricature of a person of color? And I didn't do a bunch of research. I probably should have looked up it more, but I did see a couple articles where people are like comparing how the depiction of like an uncivilized, de-evolved man has big teeth, a big nose, and is dirty. And I think that is a fair point to make. If you are somebody who is watching this and you think this is a depiction of a black man or even a Jewish man or somebody who is less than the average white man who is this untamable beast that is torturing women based on his, unattractive looks and vulgarity, that is valid. And you can definitely look at it as that. It is also just a horror story about a man turned into a monster. But if you see the depiction that maybe this is saying something about a certain type of man that can't exist in high society, that is also there. And I think that is also very apparent. And I'd understand anybody who has that criticism or that thought. I had it, and I think it's pretty... It's there if you want to find it. And that's all I want to say on like the design. What happens is we have Harry Jekyll. He's kind of engaged to this girl named Muriel, and they're horny for each other. And it's that time in society where you can't just bang abroad. You have to court her, and her dad's got to be approving of it, but they love each other. They're like kissing on the patio, and he's like, "Oh, I'll do anything to be with you. Let's move up our wedding date so we can get down and bone." It's all about sex. And as he's headed home from like this one interaction with Muriel, he sees this woman be assaulted. She's, a blonde woman, a little promiscuous maybe, and he helps her back to bed. And she's like, "Oh, you're my hero, doctor. I love you. My name is Ivy Pearson. I'll do anything for you." And he's like, "Oh, if only I wasn't engaged to Muriel." And then it's supposed to be setting up a love triangle, but what these women don't know is that Dr. Jekyll is going to drink his science drink and turn into Mr. Hyde, and chaos ensues. The physicality, unbelievable. The way he moves, the way he exists in space, it's terrifying. He goes to like a club where Ivy is, and he starts hitting on her and being very like explicit and creepy, just like luring over her, being like, "You're mine. I love you. You're staying with me." Just an overbearing, scary guy. And I'm sure every woman watching this, if there are any, I hope there are, you are familiar with this type of man who just thinks he deserves you and has you. And, it's just so creepy and just intense. And I kind of appreciate it for that. Just, it's not shying away that this is uncomfortable. We're not supposed to like Mr. Hyde. He is the villain of the piece. So is Jekyll. We don't like him either. It's really interesting how they handle that. As the story progresses, he starts to freak out more, and he starts missing dates with Muriel. So her father's like, "You can't marry this guy. He's so unreliable. He's like a weird science loser. Like, we're not going to get involved with him." "But Daddy, I love him. He's literally turning into a freak over here." It's crazy. I can't get over how good this movie looks. And I think a lot of that has to do with just Fredric March so aware of how to play this. He's the slick doctor, the cool guy. The moment it goes awry, he just goes crazy, and every action he takes is like on the rebound, where he's like, I lost favor with everybody. I don't know how to get back to normal. I guess I'm going to freak the fuck out at every single turn I have now. And that is exactly what happens. I think it's incredible. I really like the choice with the POV shots for a lot of this. A lot of looking in mirrors, a lot of seeing people like head on facing the camera, just staring directly at you. Very innovative. It is such an innovative looking movie. And it's so amazing for that. And as the story progresses, it just kind of like devolves into the town's got to get this guy because he kills Ivy. Ivy runs back to the Dr. Jekyll, and she's like, "I will literally be your slave if you save me from Hyde. He is trying to ruin me and kill me, and he raped me. Please do not let this animal be near me." And he's like, "You have my word. I promise I will never see Hyde happen again." Well, Hyde happens again. She freaks out, and he kills her. And we all know the name Hyde, but we don't know how to find this guy. And then that leads our Dr. Jekyll going to see Muriel being like, I'm sorry, my penance for being a monster that you don't know about is I cannot be with you. But then he hides out when he sees her crying, and it just leads to everybody in the town trying to attack him. It is the formula at the time. You know, I've talked about my love for the Invisible Man film with Claude Rains, which is the exact same premise. What if this insane guy took like a science drink and ruined the world around him, and this town's like, we gotta kill him. That's this. That is this. Stuff I like. It just turns into everybody chasing him down the streets in the town. He's jumping off of stairways and stuff until they corner him in his lab, because he did have to reveal himself to like his doctor partner friend earlier. And he rats him out like, that's your monster right there, for a great POV shot looking right down the camera. A lot of that going on in this movie. And he just says, kill him. And they shoot him with a gun. And he dies. And that's how the movie ends. 98 minutes, roll credits, everyone's happy. Oscar winner Fredric March here. This is incredible. If you have not seen it, it is so well executed. The cinematography is gorgeous. The acting is superb. It is such an interesting piece. The ways it explores the themes, the way it talks about stuff. The female characters are all written very powerfully. Yes, they are love-scorned women, but you handle it with this vulnerability that other films at the time don't. These women are fully realized characters who see this man as a savior, and he becomes their demise. And I think that's so interesting to handle in this aspect. You are definitely familiar with the character of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This might be one of the best on-screen versions that is solely about that character, where he's not connected to other media or characters and stuff. This film rules, and it's gorgeous, and I had such a great time with it. And I wonder if we'll explore more Jekyll and Hyde stuff later. I'd imagine we will. Not for a while, though, because this is kind of the only good one, right? Like, there's other ones that are interesting. But you don't top this. You don't top the facial expressions and the transformation sequences. Like, I still don't know how they do half this stuff. You know, I have a pretty savvy movie brain, but I don't know how you do half the stuff that's going on in movies like this back in this day. Man, I couldn't even imagine being in 1931 and seeing this. It would just be incredible. It's incredible now. That's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A fun movie. You should watch it. Thank you all for watching this episode of Horrific Tales. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.